Hello, welcome to the fourth lecture regarding my life and the way in which it's had an effect on the development of carbonatory morphology. Previous to this, I discussed the fact that in my mid-20s I had faced up to having a severe mental illness, getting treatment for it, and more importantly, getting my life on track for the first time in a long time, giving up smoking, giving up alcohol, giving up many things to embrace a new life, a very pure life, but a life where I knew what was wrong with me, a life where I was informed about it. I received medication that helped me tremendously. Some of it hindered me, and I ended up on a cocktail of drugs and will remain on a cocktail of drugs, I would imagine, for the rest of my life. Aside from that, there was the importance of me deciding to go back into education in the form of the biological sciences. My employer, AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals, agreed to send me back to university, and I did a 5-year HNC and degree course in biology. At the very end of that period of time, I found myself with a final year project that opened the door for me to discuss anything I wanted scientifically. I decided I was going to base it around the studies I'd made in psychosocial physiology and other subjects like brain and behaviour, where I'd realised that things like gender was something that completely eluded humanity. We have no idea what the origins of something like gender are. We also don't understand the brain at all. We certainly have some idea of basic functionality, but we do not know any details about it. And so I was faced, having had a background deeply entrenched in physics, mathematics and chemistry, to go into the biological sciences, where most of those fundamental techniques were of no use to me at all. I found myself looking at biological science and finding that all of the very powerful fundamental principles of physics, which underpin the whole of nature and the way in which all matter comes together, were completely and utterly ignored by biology. As a result of that, fundamental processes like the four forces of nature, bosonic particles, fermionic particles, special relativity, general relativity, and other things like quantum mechanics and nuclear physics are completely omitted when one looks at the biological sciences in any way, shape or form. In fact, you won't find a mention of any of those words in pretty much every biological text you could ever get hold of. If a biologist such as myself appeared at a physics conference where they were talking about, for example, carbon atomic physics, the physicist will be sitting there saying, what's a biologist doing here? My argument is simple. If physics, if quantum mechanics and nuclear physics are the very essence of the way we describe all matter, I am simply a very complex version of that, and I therefore should be embracing that powerful logic for describing all of life. My final year project began to identify the incredible importance of carbon and the way in which carbon and all of its characteristics are conserved and amplified to produce life as we know it today. The very basis of carbonatory morphology itself originated from my days in the early 90s, where I studied a BTEC National at Stockport College. When I studied chemistry there and I studied carbon, I found myself looking at the basic template and the basic logic for all life. And that stuck with me for a great many years. And when I did my final year project, I moved into that area and I wrote this extraordinary new paper that was very experimental, that took into account what mood really is. I found myself faced with an incredible new prospect, that I was able to use the physics of particle wave duality to explain every single day of my life. That when I was depressed, I was more of a particle and I didn't move as much. When I was manic, I was a highly waveform orientated individual. I spread out and I influenced everything around me. These are concepts associated with atomic physics. I am made of atoms. Every part of me is based on atomic physics. And at the very heart of everything you see before you today is carbon. Carbon is at the very soul of every single biological molecule, cell, tissue, organism, and groups of organisms. And it remains absolutely central in everything that it does. It also conserves its effect and conserves its influence, but amplifies that to produce life as we know it. I submitted my project, got my degree, got a 2-1, and then decided that I was going to become a professional biologist. I then underwent a number of interviews and various other things with members of the Society of Biology who had agreed to support me. I then became a full member of the Society of Biology, and then a year later on from that, I was finally given the highest professional rank of Chartered Biologist. During all that time, even though my project and my degree was over, I could not stop developing it. And suddenly, carbonentral morphology started to come to life. From stress dynamics and my incredibly broad investigation into what life is and the fact there is no link to it in physics, I suddenly found myself looking at carbon all the time and its amazing influence over the way all living organisms come together. In 2006, I took voluntary redundancy from AstraZeneca Pharmaceuticals. I got a very good package and was able to spend all of my time developing these new ideas. I dug out my old graphic styling abilities and used new computer technology to produce a very enhanced type of science. I put these things around the walls of the inside of my house for the simple reason that I had had an experience in the past which to me was life-changing. I saw the Sistine Chapel in Vatican City, and I looked around the walls of this amazing building and I could see gods and angels, devils, demons and many other things, and all I could think of was physics. And I thought, what a wonderful way of doing science, putting it around the walls and the ceilings of your house so you can continuously review it. I found myself seeing the word God and the word force being completely and utterly tied together for the very first time. That the gods of the old world, the old concepts of religion, had produced science. And science had therefore taken the concept of gods, for example, God of the air, God of the sea, God of the waters, God of the grass. There are gods for absolutely everything. They all fundamentally represent one thing, and that is forces of nature. So it is very important to realise as we go on with these lectures that my original observations were that science was separated, segregated and locked into these little niche areas, but that this gives us an incomplete model of the conscious mind and an incomplete model of the whole of the academic world. Carbonentral morphology aims to integrate, to bring together science and to bring together art into a brand new forum, so that we can move forward into the future with a complete understanding of the mind.